It's Monday, July 30th, 9 a.m. This is the Muscatine County Board of Supervisors. I'd like to call the meeting to order. First is to review the agenda.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Bob. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next is receive comments from the public. Is there anyone in the group that would like to step forward and address the board? Seeing no one come forward, we'll move on to number 4, discussion of possible action to approve claims dated July 30th, 2018 in the amount of $737,587.65.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Bob, second by Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Number 5, next is items with Conservation Director Kurt Weiss. Morning, Kurt.
Good morning.
First is discussion of possible action to accept a bid from Elwha Investment for asphalt and pavement maintenance at Discovery Park.
This is in that new section that you guys turned over to our management. Got bids from Elwha to do repair on that, put a 2-inch overlay on that, and there was one area that we needed to repair from when the water line was broke a year and a half or so ago.
In the entrance there, Kurt?
Yeah, right there at the entrance. And then they will also be putting in that new connector road that'll go where that currently that brown metal or gray metal building is, and it'll connect into the existing Discovery Park. So this way people will be able to go from, you know, the old Discovery Park into the new Discovery
Do you
Park.
still have plans to put a gate up, Kurt, or to close that section off in the winter?
Once we have gates up right now. It's that new section's closed off to traffic, other than when the barn has their open houses, it's opened up. But once we have that connector road in there, we probably will leave it open all year long then.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll go ahead and maintain it, and our guys will plow that, and once, you know, because by next year, hopefully, we'll have restroom in there, there'll be a shelter house in there, you know, the people will be using that as additional trails through there. That trail coming up from Kent Park will be completed by the end of next year, so I think that'll be a busy addition, and so, no, we won't. And then, the other reason we wanted to close it off, well, we got it closed off now, is it's tough for us to patrol it at night, because
Right.
our officers would have to drive around and come in the other way. But once we have that connector road, it'll be easier for us to keep an eye on it and tell, yeah, we want to have it access to the public.
Good. And then you mentioned the restroom. So what's the status
Still,
of that?
still moving forward on that.
Okay.
I knew with this road, until we got this done, I really didn't want that in there. But I hopefully within the next month or two, I'll be coming to you guys with bids on what that restroom will be. We're looking at a company now that we ordered one restroom for down at Deep Lakes Park. It's a pit style, but they do the flush style too. You know, the modular ones we bring in and just set them in place. But I want to have that all pretty well finalized and the restroom on order before this fall, so we can at least get the water line run across the road into the section we need, because this bid from Elwha is not to do the work until next spring. They're too busy to do it, and I kind of knew that ahead of time. They have a couple big contracts out. And so, but we want to get that water line across that road and do that repair on that before they do a final seal on that. So hopefully within the next month or two, I'll be bringing bids for a restroom.
Kurt, I just have one question on the connector road going through. Is that, I'm assuming that's going to be on the south side of where that maintenance shop building?
That maintenance building will come down.
It's going to come down?
Yeah, it'll go
So
kind of right through
it's gonna
it.
go right
A little
through.
bit to the south of it, you're correct. Yeah.
Probably just to the south of where I see that
Yeah.
concrete floor, west of that current building, I'm gonna guess, right there somewhere.
Yeah, I would have some.
Because
Yeah.
that wants to fall off, doesn't it?
Right, there's that old basketball court there, so we have to keep it north of that old basketball court.
Yeah.
Oh, the other thing I was asking.
Yeah.
I never saw these.
Okay.
Okay, so those are my 2 shelters.
Yeah, and there's 2 shelters included in that
Yep.
plan. And that's why I would like to get the additional money onto that and add a few more parking places, and that would put us about 65 or just a little over, maybe 66 parking places if we added 10 additional, and so that would be enough then to handle a couple shelter houses.
You have the preliminary idea of costs of all this? I know we've got just for the parking places listed and, you know, the new parking places, the work you went down on this, 110,000, I think it was, so.
Yeah.
But now you're talking about some additional.
Right, the restrooms,
the-
the restroom's gonna be in the $100,000 range. And then shelter houses are about 70,000, but we're working on some
Under
funding
300,000
sources.
for-
Yeah, but we're looking at some funding sources for some of these other things. And then we have a playground equipment that we'd love to put in, but
Well,
we're
it's kind
gonna.
of pricey too. What did you decide
The
on?
playground equipment, you're probably looking, in order to put in a decent playground equipment that's gonna be attractive to people and and getting the rubber matting, you probably need to be figuring $100,000. And so we'll be going out looking for funding for
You're gonna
that.
keep going until you get $500,000, aren't you?
Yeah, it's.
Kurt, I'm asking questions that are out of bounds probably, but up behind the barn, that old structure, I noticed they put shelter there. Are there plans to rehab that structure to make it more of a shelter type space, or is that just the old equipment storage building?
Yeah, no, we're not looking at doing anything like that. And actually, I need to get with the people with the Friends of the Old Barn. They've got some equipment that's stored in there, and there's some safety concerns that I have on some of that we need to figure out a better place for them to store their equipment. Either, I'm not even sure they're using it. I think it's just something that people give it to them and they put it there. And at this time, because the park's really, it's open to the public, but we're not publicizing it. There isn't a lot of people there. Once we start getting that road open and the shelters in there, we're gonna have to deal with a couple of those safety concerns. One is that behind the barn. The other is gonna be the fruit cellar. It's secure, but I think that those tin structures for the ventilation, we might have to be looking at doing something with those, because they're gonna become an attractive nuisance is what they're gonna be, and kids are gonna wanna play with them.
Yeah.
So, but at this time, we haven't put a lot into that because, we don't have the people in there yet, but we're gonna have to deal with those before we open it. The road gets open.
Okay.
Very good. Okay, so I would make a motion that we accept the bid from Illo Investment for the approximate 125,000, I think it was, right? With the, there was 118 or 84 plus 25.
Roughly 110,000.
110,
Just
okay.
under 100.
I'll second that.
I got a motion by Jeff, second by Bob. Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion passes. Anything else, Kurt?
No, that's all.
And that'll be construction spring of 19.
That's correct. Yeah.
So was this an estimate? So instead of adding it up to the 109, whatever, should it be 110,000?
Should be 110,000. Well, we're looking at, their estimate was 84,987.
125. But
And
just
then-
make it 110,000.
110,
That's what the
because
board's
then they were
approving.
giving us per square yard price to do additional parking, and that's what.
All right, I just want to make sure I was clear on what the board
Yeah.
had approved.
Still moving forward with the cabins down at Deep Lakes. Actually, we'll have contractor back in there moving some more sand, working with the engineering firm. We'll be finalizing plans and meeting with the, we took a tour of the cabins up in Westlake Park, and board was very impressed with those, so I'm gonna be contacting that company to see if we could make a deal with them for 4 cabins. And so our goal is to maybe be able to get foundations in yet this fall or winter and have them in place by next spring. But getting the estimates back from the engineer, just the rough estimates last week, we're still falling in our ballpark of $1 million. So I think we'll be pretty good. The one thing that will, that can make the difference, and we might, understand that some more money was set aside for us for, be the difference between doing seal coat roads and maybe doing paved roads going in. I think, you know, it'd be nice to do it first class if we're gonna do it. And put those roads at least around the cabins all asphalt or pavement, you know, concrete.
How's your volume of participants been this summer? down at the
It's
place?
been great.
Every time I've gone
Yeah.
by, it's been,
More and more people are finding
It's
that
been
place
highly
and using it.
utilized.
And the bike trail, I know my wife and I ride the bike trail quite a bit. It's just amazing how
I hear nothing
how
but
many
good things
people
about
you
that trail.
pass.
The community just loves it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm really glad because, you know, for so many years, we talked about that trail going down on the south end, and a lot of it was gonna be shared the road, and it just is so great that it's all separated from the road, because you see so many families using it, that, you know, it's safe for the kids to ride on it.
How's your volume of campers out of Salisbury this year?
Again, I gave the board a report. We would have broke our record of camping this last fiscal year had it not been, we were underwater for the last 3 weeks of June. But other than that, we had our second highest year of camping ever out at Salisbury this last fiscal year. So that's, you know, from June 30th to July 1st.
So it'd be really nice to get something at Deep Lakes where you don't have the flooding issue.
Where we don't have that flooding issue.
Help with your revenue
Yeah.
consistency.
Yeah, because there's no doubt about it.
Oh,
It's gonna be
camp,
highly
and,
utilized.
and camping is increasing statewide. All the other county conservation boards you talk to, it's, the baby boomers are retiring and they're buying campers, and that seems to be one of their recreations of choice, is camping. So it's up statewide.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else from Kurt?
No comment on that camper thing. I have a neighbor that works at one of the bigger ones. They're processing 28 a week. So they're really moving them out. People are really buying them.
You can see just, when I was on vacation, just the campers, the trailers on the road is just amazing to me. I've never seen it like it is right now. It's
Yeah,
just
and-
lots of people.
And they're not in the pop-up campers
Oh,
anymore.
they're 30, 40 foot, you know.
Yeah, they're
I'll
nice.
just say for those people contemplating, go out and check all your used ones. You can get some phenomenal buys. Those things go for a song after somebody's had them a couple of years. So you get a fairly new one, really nice for an affordable price.
Very good.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Kurt. Next is discussion and possible action to accept the Muscatine County Treasurer's semi-annual report for the period of January 1, 2018 to June 30th, 2018.
I'll move to approve. I do have some questions though.
I'll second that.
Good morning.
I just noticed, Amy, on the balances, the computed cash balance and the actual cash balance, there was about a 13,000 difference. Is that something we are concerned about? Is that a new software thing?
It's a software, how we handle cash items at the end of the month with this new system versus the old one. So it's a postage credit that we have on our machine and pending NSF checks. So we just have to figure out a better way to receipt those or do something in this new system so it doesn't show up like that. The old one, I used to just list all the outstanding cash items.
Yeah.
And it would just simply be listed. This one, everything has to go into an account we haven't created a new account or figured out how we're gonna do that, but we do know what that is.
So their computed cash is lower than the actual cash, so they're backing those things out? Is that what you're thinking, or do we know for sure exactly what's?
It's not accounting for it in the financial system.
Okay. So these
But
are,
it's actually cash we have.
it's cash we know we have, but it's not, the system isn't accounting for it because of the type of a cash it is, an insufficient fund or whatever it
Right.
might be.
So we're trying to figure out what's the easiest way, the best way to handle that with this new system. The old system required us to handle it a different way than this one does. One that doesn't cause a lot of steps for the treasurer's office to handle it, so. And the state auditors are here, so we're kind of working with them about
Right now.
what they want to see, what they think makes sense, and they're basically thinking handling postage like a cash fund. And that may be the simplest, easiest way to do it.
So that, yeah, postage is probably most of it, right?
It is, it's the 12th 12.3, I think. We had a,
12.3 out of about 13,
yeah,
yeah.
we had an NSF check pending for $310 at the end of the month. And we give those people 20 days to get that paid before we actually revoke it. So that's why that's in a pending status.
And that doesn't normally happen over
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't think we get a ton of them.
We don't get as many as we used to.
Yeah. That's all good, all good.
Okay, I just have a question, it might be a little off this, but while you're right here, how's your passport volume, and how's that working? I try to educate people all the time that are out talking about getting passports and things. A lot of people still don't realize that this is by far the best location
Oh, definitely.
with the ease of the process to get their passports and get them renewed.
We hear that every day.
Yep.
Month by month, we're growing in the number
I
of
would assume that.
application, and of course during the summer months, and it's worked out really well. We don't require that people have to have appointments. We do recommend if they're coming in with a family of 4 or more to try to come in early morning or, you know, not during the lunch hour,
Sure.
just because we're shorter on staff then. But it's been a great revenue source for us, and as well as the recorder's office, because they bring their paperwork in, and while we're making copies, we send them to get their pictures taken, and they come back, and we've pretty much wrapped up the application process and can get them on their way. We get complimented a lot because the post office struggles, and I know they're very happy for us to take on that service as well.
Right, and you can handle the segregation of duties with vital records, folks, like
Right.
having the treasurer
Right,
and the.
and because we don't issue driver's license, we don't have a
Conflict there.
conflict there,
Very
so
good.
it's working well.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
So I've got on this, I've got a motion by Jeff and a second by Nathan is what I have. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Number 7, discussion and possible action to approve the minutes of July 23rd, 2018 regular meeting. Motion by Nathan.
Second.
Second by Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Correspondence. Bob, do you have anything?
Nothing that I can recall.
Okay. Nathan?
I do not.
I had none. Jeff?
Nothing to know.
How about committee reports, Jeff?
On the 16th, we had the MCC JCC Commission, and I'll note there that Beverly is really it's kind of a whirlwind down there. She's getting a lot of things done and accomplished, wanting to start to make some changes. There were some staffing things came up. We didn't give her everything she wanted, but we approved a few staffing changes that were allowed within budget. Other things we're gonna take budget amendments. We said, nah, we're not ready to go there. I'll say that again, appreciations to Chief Evers from Muscatine Fire for all the help. In the interim with the EMA director out, we're starting to get some clarity around who pays for what's appropriate, what's not, what should be in each organization. I think that'll help us and benefit us in the long term, so they're doing a great job there. But bottom line is we've authorized the hiring of 2 additional dispatch personnel. And she said in the last go-round of, you know, we've always heard we've had difficulty getting good candidates. She said outstanding candidates in the last pool, prior dispatch experience, some of them and all that. So really feel good about where we're at there and the progress she's making. And then on the 26th, I had the West Liberty Economic Development meeting.
Okay, thank you. I had, Wednesday the 25th, I had Bi-State, and there was a gentleman from the Illinois Department of Transportation that gave a talk on the Chicago to Quad City Rail Project that would utilize the BNSF and the Iowa Interstate rail systems to accomplish this, and this is something that has been in the works and talks for a long, long time. The thought process is to do 2 round trips per day on this system, and you have to be a class 1 for passenger transport, the real quality, I will call it. The BASF is currently that, which is the section of rail from Chicago to Princeton, okay, and then from Princeton on east into the Quad Cities, then it would run the Iowa Interstate, and that seems to be the holdup of the whole project, is negotiating that process with the Iowa Interstate, but it's a class 3, so there'd have to be a lot of improvements there. There was a very interesting presentation and conversation on that, and something that actually does make a lot of sense to me. But from the conversation in the group, this has been in the works for a long, long time, and quite honestly, I didn't sense any real optimism that this is going to happen anytime in the near future at all.
It wasn't the speed of government.
Well, I guess
Well,
that's
but
true.
the thing is, it's had a lot of resistance from anywhere in Iowa outside the Quad Cities, because there's a cost
Well,
involved.
it's not coming to Iowa.
Yeah, but what I've seen happening though, is there's more businessmen actually, like even from Muscatine, that are driving and picking up Princeton and going into Chicago every day, back and forth. So as you see more usage, maybe it'll soften a little bit and there'll be more interest.
Well, if you recall, the original proposal for the high-speed rail was to run all the way to Iowa City. And this board was presented with, to try to support, we were asked to support in the tunes of, at that time, I think it was $50,000 a year for operational expenses of that rail. And, we didn't see a benefit to Muscatine County, and I think a lot of the supervisors, and, they barely touched Muscatine County. And I think all the counties, they didn't get the support I think they were hoping for. I think the Quad Cities is probably a great first step to see if they can generate the traffic, passenger traffic, the revenue that it's gonna take to keep it out. I don't have a problem putting the infrastructure in, but if it doesn't operationally make, support itself, I don't know that it's needed. That just tells me that people don't want it.
Well, and I ran, based on some of the numbers they were giving us, assuming it runs exactly to budget, I know, the left is appropriate, and assuming there's no actual, and this is completely without any sort of operational expense, and note that it's going to be run by Amtrak, which, as I brought up to the gentleman, has a sterling record of on-time service. Tongue in cheek there. It's gonna take completely full trains 31 years to even pay off the initial construction investment, which seems optimistic to me. And that's having to, negotiate and approve that large, about a 50-mile stretch of privately held railroad stock or rail lines. The other thing that, I understand the rationale for it, but always irks me is basically at government expense, they're going to plan on improving a private line. And I'm not a big one on paying people or paying public funds to improve or increase the value of a privately held asset. That just seems like a windfall and a boondoggle to me. And I did learn something interesting for all those out there who ride Amtrak. Now, as the gentleman did point out, Amtrak is at the mercy of the private rail carrier schedules. But on time under railroad definitions means on time or 15 minutes or less late. And some of the lines Amtrak runs through Illinois have a 30% on-time rate, which means over 2/3 of their trains are over 15 minutes late, which is certainly not a way to encourage ridership in my mind. So I have never been more glad that Iowa killed this thing for now. It seems like that giant sucking sound that Ross Perot warned us about a few decades back. Seems like that's exactly what this is going to be for Illinois. But they have a history of great investments with their government, so I'm sure my expectations will be pleasantly frustrated.
Well,
Sorry, I'm gonna move this morning.
30-year payback, don't put me on that investor list.
Yeah, no, that's with no operational expense.
That's with no operational expense. Okay, so there is no
maintenance
payback.
cost,
There is no
And
payback.
budget
no
for
inflation.
us.
See, 30 years, how many times does the track wear out?
Right, so.
10 times, 3 times?
I'm happy you guys killed that.
So, That's all I had. Nick, you had more than you'd
We
like to
didn't
say?
kill it, we just didn't support it.
Well, yes, I've probably injected enough venom into this project. I didn't have anything to say, but I say no.
Bob and committee.
Well, we had a date change for Conservation Board, and I missed it on a Wednesday. However, Kurt did give me the numbers for June usage, and I'll pass these around so you can look at them. Other than that, he covered everything when he was at the podium.
Very
I
good.
I read through the notes and I'm always shocked, even with school out, you know, it's
Yeah.
harder to corral children, that they still,
Pretty
just
good.
tons
Oh, the
of
numbers are always
people
good.
through there, so Kurt and his staff do a great job of involving the community and
Yeah, I think a lot of that
A lot of that-
deserve goes to Baki too. Mr. Baki does a great job with that. Michelle, too.
Well, the thing that amazes me is what a great job Kurt and staff do out there, and all the elementary age kids that take numerous tours through the facilities and so on. But you still talk to people that don't have any idea that that Discovery Center is there. They don't even know there's a building back there. And I just don't know how it's possible that you can not know that. And as great a job as you guys do in educating kids and getting people through there, and I don't know how there can be a single person that doesn't know that
Yeah,
that
you
is.
think the little lakes out front would visually attract people that don't know anything about it. Once they got in there,
Uh-huh.
you know, they'd say, oh, what's that? Nice.
maybe we need a big neon billboard,
Well, we may have to.
70 feet tall or something, what do you think?
But I think you do a great job, Kurt. I don't know what in the world you could do more to educate the people that aren't able to realize it's there. Let's see, next is
And
I'm at 10, receive information from county employees. Anyone need to address the board? Okay. 11, items with the administration office. A is discussion and possible action to appoint a Board of Supervisors member to replace Matt Bonebrake on the Magic Board of Directors. Do we have, let's see, Jeff is currently,
I'm currently on the board, so that board meets on Mondays, once a quarter, typically at 4:30. They have, you know, Matt, it's been a meeting apparently difficult for him to make. And the board's bylaws say if you miss more than half the meetings in a 12-month period, they ask for your resignation. So that board took that action last meeting because Matt was unable to attend again. And he said it's a challenge for him. So I'd look for somebody that maybe could join me on that board. There's some pretty heavy work going on there in the next few months as we're dealing with some transition plans and things, so.
Jeff, how long are the meetings and which particular Monday?
Oh geez, you always ask me.
I would, you know.
Meetings are never over an hour.
Okay. Just asking, because I've got, once a month, I've got the mental health board.
And well, it would have been on the no, it wasn't the 16th. When was it? Yeah, you asked me. I don't know. I put it on my calendar.
We generally meet on the third Monday of the month.
You've got a pretty heavy workload, okay? So I would be more than happy to volunteer for this. I've got previous experience.
Sure.
I've been on that board probably 4 times in my life, different times, for both the city and the county, so I'm pretty familiar with their workings. And I don't think it'd be a burden on me at 4 times a year.
Okay.
Okay, that'd be
If,
great.
if you're okay with
Oh,
that.
fine.
I know you've got quite a few boards you've taken on.
Well, Monday's a rough day, so, but yeah, if you wanna do it, I'm happy to.
And Monday's a disaster for me because of the board meeting. It breaks up the day so bad already, so it'd work out.
I'm thinking it's the first or second Monday of the quarter is kind of what I'm thinking, but I have to go back and figure it out.
I'll nominate Bob.
Okay,
motion by Nate.
and I'll second it.
Second by Jeff, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
Part of
passes.
accepting is we don't let my wife in hopes she's not watching today.
I'm sure no one will tell her. B, the discussion and possible action to appoint Robert Bond to the Mercer Muscatine Revolving Loan Administration Board for a term ending June 30th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Bob, second by Jeff, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion passes. Anything else on the administration side to come before the board? If there's nothing further to come before the board, meeting is adjourned.
Keith, we didn't have any issues with accidents or